ओम सच्चिदानंद परब्रह्मा परमात्मा पुरुषोत्तमा श्री भगवती समेत श्री भगवते नमः. May the one who is all, who is in all, in whom is all, bless us to be successful, happy, peaceful and prosperous. Dear devotees, on this divine Guru Purnima day, I am very happy to discuss about a very great subject of the teachings of Lord Dattatreya. Lord Dattatreya is presumed to be the avatar of Shiva, Vishnu and Brahma, Trimurti. He is considered to be the embodiment of knowledge and dharma. He is a self-taught sage. He did not have a formal guru. He was guided by Atma Guru. And he is worshipped today in all parts of the world as an embodiment and personification of knowledge and dharma. He is praised extensively by none other than Lord Krishna himself in Bhagavatam. Lord Krishna extensively quotes Lord Dattatreya on many subjects of dharma and jnana. Today we will take up for discussion one important event that happened in the life of Lord Dattatreya. Once, Lord Dattatreya was roaming in a forest very happily, as he is usually. There, he met the king Yadu, who, on seeing Dattatreya, felt so happy and asked him the secret of his happiness, and also requested Lord Dattatreya to name his guru so that he can also learn from that guru. Dattatreya smiled and said that, my dear king, Atman alone is the guru. That Atman was my guru as well. But he said, since this Atman is there in every other being, whatever we see in the world, we can learn many things from many of the things that we see in the world. Like that, I have learned wisdom from 24 individuals or things whom I consider as my gurus. I will tell you about them. So Dattatreya elaborated the natural gurus other than his Atma Guru. He said, my gurus are earth, water, air, fire, sky, moon, sun, pigeon, python, ocean, moth, bee, honey gatherer, elephant, deer, fish, the dancing girl Pingala, raven, child, maiden, serpent, arrow maker, spider, and beetle. King Yadu was enthralled. He said, Guruji, can you elaborate? What are all the lessons you learned? What is the wisdom you gained from each one of them? Dattatreya elaborated. He said, I learned patience and doing only good to others from the earth, because it endures every injury that a man commits on its surface, and it yet does him only good by bearing him and producing the crops, trees, and other things, whatever is required for the humans. It doesn't retaliate, it bears. I learned forbearance from earth. Then, from water, I learned the quality of purity. Just as the pure water cleanses all other dirts, so also a man who is pure and free from selfishness, lust, egoism, anger, greed, etc., should purify all who come in contact with him. This self-purification and purifying everything that comes in contact with others will keep you always pure. For this, mental purity is a must. That is what I learned. Water's inherent nature is purity, and therefore I learned that we have to be innately pure. From air, I understood that though it is moving everywhere, never gets attached to anything. Therefore, we can move along with any number of people, but we should never get attached to anything. We may possess or enjoy or use many things, but we should never get attached to anything. There is a big difference between enjoyership and ownership. In this world, we don't own anything. We just possess something for some time. We should never get attached. This is what I learned from air. From fire, I understood that we have to burn, giving light and heat, and in the process burn out all the dirts and bring out the clear light. That will give us the splendor of knowledge and keep our intellect pure. So from fire I understood the splendor and the purity. From the sky, I understood that it will come into contact with everything because it is a space, because it is all pervading. But yet, it is not limited to anything. The air, the stars, the clouds, all the beings are all contained in the sky, that is the space. But yet, the sky or the space does not come in contact with them or gets attached to them. So I have learned that like the sky, the Atman or the soul is all pervading, and yet it has no contact with any object. It is indwelling, but it is not attached. There is a big difference between being there and being attached. Being there is to animate. Being attached is to be responsible for its action. Actually, this is the difference between Atman and Jiva. Atman and Jiva are made up of the same material, excepting that Jivatma gets attached and enjoys or suffers. Like in Atma, it is animating, but it never gets attached. It is like the sky. So from the sky, I understood and learned the art of being there but not being attached. And Atman is a sky. From the moon, I understood that though it is always complete, but appears to decrease or increase on account of the varying shadow of the earth upon the moon. I have learned from this that the Atman is always perfect and changeless, and that it is only the upadhis or the ego or the limiting adjuncts that cast shadows upon it. So the Atman, the pure principle which is animating us, is always full, Purnatvam. But our ego intervenes and makes it waxing and waning, resulting in happiness and sorrow. Then, just as the sun, reflected in the various parts of water, appears as so many different reflections, so also the Parabrahman, the Supreme Spirit, the animating energy, appears different because of the upadhis or various bodies or egos caused by the reflection through the mind. So from the sun I learned that the Supreme Spirit, the Parabrahman, is only one, but its manifestations are many. Then one day I saw a fowler spread a net and caught some pigeons. The mother pigeon, it was not caught in the net, but though it was outside, it was very much attached to the children. She did not want to live without the children, so she fell into the net and was caught. The male pigeon was attached to the female pigeon, so he also fell into the net and was caught. While the young pigeons were caught by the fowler, the mother pigeon or the father pigeon, instead of using their intellect, just used or fell prey to their mind and emotions and got caught. From this I understood that attachment is a cause for bondage, and intellect is the solution to resolve it. But most of us don't use intellect, and we are caught by the bondage of attachment. Next, I found the python does not move about for its food. It remains contented with whatever it gets and lives in one place. From this I learn to be unmindful of food and be contented with whatever we get. Contentment is the highest virtue because that is the root for equanimity or peace of mind, which leads to happiness in life. So he says python is an example of being happy, living with whatever comes across, not getting into the rat race. Then he says, just as the ocean remains unmoved, even though hundreds of rivers fall into it, so also the wise men should remain unmoved among all sorts of temptations, difficulties and troubles. So many waters come in to the sea, so much of turbulence on the top. There can be cyclone, anything happening on the top. But at the bottom of the ocean, it is always calm. The life can be full of ups and downs, full of happiness and miseries. But the purpose of life, the basis of life, the underlying divine essence of us has to be always to be calm and quiet so that we are able to handle the life. We are not born to be turbulent. We are born to be happy. And for this we need to know, like the ocean knows its internal powers, whatever may be the external turbulences, we have to know our internal powers. Then we will not be bothered about the apparent turbulences. Then he said, just as the moth, being enamored of the brilliance of the fire, falls into it and gets burnt, so also a passionate man who falls in love or falls for anything, whether he is entitled or not, comes to grief. He says, to control the sense of sight and to fix the mind on the self is the lesson I learned from the moth. The moth mistakenly identifies the fire as if it is light without knowing it is having a capacity to burn, and it flies towards it and gets burned. This moha on the fire ends its life within a day. So I learned that we have to curtail our moha, which is a delusion. Then, just as the black bee sucks honey from different flowers and does not stick to just one flower, we should also learn our wisdom from everything we see. It need not be just from one thing. That is why there are so many scriptures. They may be saying repeatedly the same thing, but each one scripture may bring out one different angle. As the honeybee sucks honey from so many flowers, we should try to learn from as many sources as we can. That is why nature has given so many things. That is why I have learned these lessons from the nature itself. So you study the nature and learn your wisdom from the nature itself. God has created every being, everything for a purpose. And if you can understand the purpose of each of these things, and you will be the master of the nature. In this regard, I am reminded of a quote from poet Kannadasan. He was asked once that how he is able to talk on all these subjects, so many subjects. He told, whatever piece of paper comes to me, I read it. He said that once I was purchasing peanut. That peanut was packed in a paper. That paper also I read. That paper contained a few stanza, few lines. I preserved that paper. Later on, when a movie situation was told to me, those lines came to my mind and I quoted from that. That is a very famous song in a Tamil movie. That is why the ancient proverb also says, Kandadai padithal panditan agalam. You can become a scholar by reading as many things as you can. So he says, honeybee is the example. Then he goes to the next example. Bees collect honey with great trouble, but a honey gatherer comes and takes the honey easily. Like that, People hoard up wealth and other things with great difficulty, but they have to leave them all at once and depart when the Lord of death takes hold of them. From this, I learnt the lesson that it is useless to hoard things. Nothing wrong in earning, but you have to use it for common good. There is a saying in Tamil, ER Thetai, TR Kolvar. It is a double meaning proverb. ER means, E means one way B. TR means the fellows who go to collect the bee from the beehive will first show the fire torch. Then only the bees will run away. Then they extract the bee. So, the honey accumulated by the bees are taken away by the guys who are holding the fire torch. This is one meaning. The another meaning is, ER means one who doesn't share with others, who doesn't give anything to others. TR means bad guys. So, if a person has earned a lot of wealth but he is not sharing with others, then some thief or somebody will be stealing it away. That is why the famous proverb, ER Thetai, TR Kolvar. So the moral of this honey gatherer is that nothing wrong in earning, but you have to share it for the welfare of others. Look at a tree. It may gather many fruits, but it doesn't eat. It shares with others. This is what Dattatreya learnt from the honey gatherer. Then he quotes the next example of the male elephant, which is blinded by lust, falls into a pit covered over with grass. It falls into the pit just on seeing a paper-made female elephant. It gets caught, enchained and tortured by the goad. Like this, all of us, lacking wisdom and intellect, getting tempted by small things, fall into the pit of the Arishta Vargas, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Madam, Ashcharya, and then suffer like anything. Do lot of bad things and create sufferings for ourselves and others, and create a bondage to be living painfully in this birth and birth after birth. He says, from that elephant I learned that we should not become deluded or unduly lusty or greedy. Then he comes to the example of deer. He says that deer is enticed and trapped by the hunter through its love of music. Music here is an example of enticement. The deer who could have lived a happy life is enticed by some petty thing and falls prey. I learned from that we should not be enticed by petty things if we want to live a peaceful life. Then he comes to fish. Similarly, a free fish which is in the pond or ocean or lake, because of its covetousness of food, falls an easy victim to the bait. So the man, falling bait to little things, allows his weak sense to overpower him and loses his independence and gets easily ruined. So from the fish, I understood that we should not fall prey to petty desires. Our desire should only be to know our real powers, that is to know the divine energy within us, that is to know the Atman. Then he says there was a dancing girl named Pingala in the town of Videha. On one particular night, she was very tired of looking for customers. She was very restless. At the end, she became hopeless. Once she realized that she is not going to get what she wants, she settled with what she could get. With that, she spent the night and had a sound sleep. He says, Dattatreya says, I have learned from that fallen woman the lesson that the abandonment of unwanted desires leads us to contentment. Then he quotes, a raven picked up a piece of flesh. It was pursued and beaten up by other birds. Finally, it dropped the piece of flesh and it was left alone because the other birds went after the piece of flesh and stopped bothering the raven. So the raven in the process attained peace and rest. From this I learned the lesson that a man in the world undergoes all sorts of troubles and miseries when he runs after sensual pleasures, and he becomes happy once he abandons these unwanted sensual pleasures. He says the only pleasure that a person should pursue is the pleasure of knowing his internal powers, that is the Atman, which nobody can take away from him, which nobody can disturb him. And this pleasure will always be with him. With this pleasure he can achieve, once he gets this pleasure, that is understanding his internal power, that is the Atman, he can get anything he wants. He says the focus of the man has to be in achieving and understanding and realizing his true internal powers, that is the divine energy, that is the Atman. Then he quotes the child. He says the child who sucks milk, that is at such a tender age, when it is not having ego, when it is not knowing the world with all its complexities, with no ego at all, sucks milk and is free from all egotism, cares, worries and anxieties, and therefore always cheerful. So I learned from the child the virtue of being non-egoistic and therefore being cheerful. Then he says that the parents of a maiden, it is a story like. He says the parents of a maiden had gone in search of a bridegroom for her. The girl was all alone in her house. During the absence of the parents, a party of people came to the house to see her on a similar object in reference to an offer of marriage. She received the party herself. She went inside to husk the party to make food for them. While she was husking, the glass bangles on both hands made tremendous jingling noise. The wise girl reflected, thus, the party will detect by the noise of my bangles that I am husking the party myself, and that my family is too poor to engage others to get the work done. So let me break all my bangles, except 2 on each hand. Accordingly, she broke the bangles, except 2 on each hand. Even those 2 bangles created much noise. She broke 1 more bangle on each hand. There was no further noise, though she continued the husking. From this I learned, from the girl's experience, that living among many in the world may create discord, disturbance, dispute and quarrel. But if we are in a position to concentrate just on one thing, that is our internal self, that is our divine energy, that is our Atman, we will be ever in happy and we will be ever in solitude. And the divine grace of that God, there will be no noise because we will be in tune with the divine energy and nobody can even notice we are doing this tapasya. But our objective will be achieved because we are doing it in solitude. Then he quotes a serpent. He says a serpent does not build its hole. It dwells in the holes dug out by others. He says, truly, this body is a borrowed body. We think that we have made this. We have not made this. This body has been made naturally. And we, the Atman, we come and stay here. The Jivan, come and stay here like the serpent. Only because we believe it is our body, all the problems come. If we understand, like the serpent, we are just occupants, we are not the owners of this body, most of our problems will be solved. What we own is only our internal divine energy, which is there everywhere. So the serpent taught me the lesson that you know what you are. That is the only thing you need to know. The place you live, all these things are borrowed. It is not yours. Then he quotes the arrow maker. He says, the mind of an arrow maker was once wholly grossed in sharpening and straightening an arrow. While he was thus engaged, a king passed before his shop with his whole retinue. After some time, a man came to the artisan and asked him whether the king passed by his shop. The arrow maker replied that he did not notice anything. The fact is that the artisan's mind was solely absorbed in his work and he did not know what was passing before his shop. From this I have learnt the quality of intense concentration of mind. This is what is required for realizing the indwelling spirit, the Atman, the God. And once we understand that, our powers will be immense and nobody can stop our success. Then he quotes the spider. He says, the spider pours out of his mouth long threads and weaves them into the cobwebs. It is there watching what is happening, and when its prey comes, it eats, and whenever necessary, it just collapses it and goes to another place and creates a new web. He says, from this I learned that our Atman is like that spider. It can create anywhere, anything it wants. Because Atman is also as powerful as God. God also does the same thing. But it doesn't get attached to one place. And for creating it, it is not dependent on anything else. It is dependent on just on its own mouth. Because it pours the essence from its mouth. So, like God creates this world out of Him, by Him, and He is constantly watches what is happening. Similarly, we are creating our own situations, our own life, our own circumstances, and we are watching it, we can manage it, we can run it the way we like, provided we know what our powers are. The spider knows its power, that is how it does it. So, we must know what is our power. And for that we need to be like that arrow man, that is having full concentration of understanding what we are. Then he quotes the bringi or the beetle. He says, the beetle catches hold of a worm, puts it in its nest, and gives it a sting. The poor worm, always fearing the return of the beetle and sting, and thinking constantly of the beetle, becomes a beetle itself. You understand? The worm, out of fear, constantly thinking of the beetle and its sting, is becoming a beetle itself. So, Dattatreya says, whatever a form a man constantly thinks of, he attains in course of time, like that form. As a man thinks, so he becomes. So I have learned from the beetle and the worm to turn myself into Atman by contemplating constantly on it, and thus to give up all attachments to the body and attain liberation. We can achieve and attain whatever we want, whatever we think in our mind, if we can realize the divine power within us. That is the divine energy, that is the Atman. These great parables of the gurus of the nature should be an eye-opener for all of us. God is speaking through the nature to every one of us to teach the divine essence, the power of our divine nature constantly. All that is required for us to understand that we are divine power with incalculable energy, a divine force capable of achieving anything we like. But for this, we need to understand what our powers are, and we have to learn how to practice it and put it into effect. On this glorious Guru Purnima day, let us take a resolution that we will learn the secrets of the nature which are enshrined in the Vedas and lead a meaningful life by practicing the sadhana as enumerated in the Vedas itself. I wish on this holy day all our devotees a successful, happy, peaceful and prosperous life. Om Rishabharuda Parabrahmane Namaha. At this point of time, let us discuss something about the great Lord Dattatreya. As per a Puranic story, Lord Dattatreya was born to sage Anusuya. Anusuya was married to Atri Maharshi and they were living happily, but they did not have a child. Anusuya was a tapasvi. She was in the Grahasthasrama, but still she was a very spiritually advanced person. On one side, she was very beautiful, and on the other side, she was a Brahmajnani. She was a great practitioner of the Brahma sadhana. She was luminous like a sun, and even the gods were envy of her. The three Devis were equally envious of her. So they wanted to test her. So they sent their husbands, Shiva, Vishnu and Brahma, to her house and wanted to test her. These three Devas went there one day when Atri Maharshi has gone to the river for his morning pujas. So on seeing the monks, they came in the form of a monk, sannyasi. On seeing three sannyasis at the doorstep, Anusuya welcomed them and asked them to be seated. And she said she will be very happy to serve them. She said she will prepare food. They said, very happy, but we have some rules for our bhojanam. That is, when we take food, we will be naked, and also the person serving should be naked. Anusuya was shocked. But Anusuya was a Brahmajnani. So, through her inner vision, she could find out the persons who have come are none other than Shiva, Vishnu and Brahma. She prayed to her inner divine energy to how to handle the situation. She got an answer intuitively. So she said, no problem, please be seated. Then she got a kamandal of her with her, and she prayed, and she said, please be seated. I want to honor you with spraying of my prayed water. They were all very happy because they were also enticed by her beauty. Anusuya took the prayed water, that is japa water, and sprinkled on them and said, all the three of you become babies, newborn babies. All the three murtis became three babies. Then Anusuya fed them milk. So she said, I have completed my promise. And you have also kept up your promise. You are naked, I am also naked. We both have complied with our requirements. And in the process, she has ensured that her chastity is not affected in any way. On seeing this, the Devis were stunned. They appeared before Anusuya and prayed her to release the Trimurtis from the bondage, to make them as they were before. Anusuya said she will happily do that, but she did not expect this from the Trimurtis. But in any way, there has to be a purpose for anything that is happening in this world. I won't say anything as fate, because Vedas declare there is nothing like fate engraved on a stone. There has to be a purpose. I take the purpose of this episode, why this has happened, is that God wants to bless me with something. Therefore, in turn I am asking you, the three Devis, one boon, that let all the three of them be born to them, but as one child. Because I have fed them in any case, my milk. So, they are already my baby. So let them be biologically born as my baby, but all the three into one. The Devis agreed. That is how Dattatreya was born, according to this Purana, to Anusuya. And that is why he is the manifestation of all the three energies in one person. The Puranic portions apart, the esoteric meaning of this is, Anusuya was a God's representation as being one of the most beautiful women and chaste woman good at heart and being a tapasvi and being a spiritually evolved person. So God gifted her with a son, Parabrahmam, gifted her with a son with all the features of the Parabrahmam, that is, the omniscience of Shiva, the omnipotence of Vishnu, omnipresence of Vishnu, and the creative capability of Brahma, all the three together. That is why Dattatreya is such a powerful sage. And there is one more message in this Puranic story, parable, which is that Anusuya was physically a very, very glorious woman, beautiful, luminous, mentally so agile. Then when a problem was posed to her, she was able to quickly react, and intellectually very advanced to handle the situation, and intuitively so powerful that she was able to communicate with the inner residing spirit to get an answer. In essence, she was a very spiritually advanced person. That is why she is called a Brahmajnani. Her powers were immense, so immense that even the Trimurtis were reduced to a baby before her. This is the effect of Brahma Sadhana. This is the true power of human beings. This is what this parable or Puranic story establishes. Now, having learned the divinity of Dattatreya and also the 7 primordial gurus in our earlier video on Saptaguru, it is time on this holy Guru Purnima day to pray and honor all these gurus. Therefore, on this great Guru Purnima day, let us pray unto the Adi Guru, Shiva, the Shakti Guru, Devi, the Parama Guru, Vishnu, the Bhava Guru, Brahma, the Moola Guru, Mahaganapati, the Pranava Guru, Subramanya, the Atma Guru, Dakshina Murti, Veda Guru, Veda Vyasa, Jiva Gurus, Adi Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhvacharya, Shirdi Sai Baba, Aravindo, Swami Raghavendra, and Pujya Mahaswami Kanchi Paramacharya, and also Sage Dattatreya. Let us pray unto all these gurus to guide us to realize our internal divine energy and the innate immense powers we possess, and lead us to success, to immense success, using these extraordinary God-given powers that are within us. God has made us only to succeed in life, and therefore vested within us enormous powers and energies. In fact, to ensure that success, He Himself is residing within us as the divine energy, Antaryami. All that is required is to realize it, understand it, and use it. Let this Guru Purnima day be the beginning to learn the true powers of us and realize the same and put it into use to succeed in life. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devi, Gurur Putro, Gurur Devo, Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat, Parabrahma, Tasmai Sri, Gurave Namaha.